Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you basically how to Photoshop out ghosting in your bullet journal. It's a little bit of a complex process, so I'm going to do my best to kind of make it beginner friendly. I would say if you know Photoshop super well, you'll probably be bored by this tutorial. But if you just downloaded Photoshop and you just opened it up and you're ready to use it on your bullet journal photos, this is definitely the video for you. So a lot of times, just depending on the kind of notebook that you use or how heavy of a pen you were using, ghosting happens. And so in this particular photo, I made a movie list, and part 1 you can see, so this is part 2, this is part 3. Part 1's on the opposite side of part 2. And it looks very similar. You can kind of see that same little film graphic is on the back, and it's definitely bleeding through. And then all my little writing as well as my little boxes are bleeding through. I've already done some basic kind of cropping and color correcting things, which I kind of talk about in another video. For the sake of time, we're just going to jump right in. So we're going to be using a couple different functions of Photoshop to do this. One is the select function, and the second is the brush tool. We are going to start by making a copy of this photo. I'm a big fan of making copies because you never know when you're going to screw something up. So to make a copy, basically I just unlocked, if you have a little lock button here, you can just click it to make it go away. That unlocks your layer. And then I'm just going to click and drag into this little new layer icon. So now I have a copy. And then I'm actually going to make another copy. I'm going to call this one copy. And you just have to double click on the words themselves to rename it. And then I'm going to click on the eyeball so that that one doesn't show up. So basically the eyeball just hides or unhides. This one I'm going to call template. And then this one I'm going to call final image. Alright, so I'm going to hide final image, so I'm going to click the eyeball. And then make sure that your layer is actually selected. Sometimes, just for whatever reason, it gets deselected. What I'm going to do is up my contrast a ton, because basically I only want to select the white parts and not any of you might have color. In this case I don't have any color, but basically I just only want to select the white or light parts, which is my page. So in order to do that, I want to really up the contrast here. Again, forgot to select my layer. So I'm going to go brightness contrast, and I'm just going to be really crazy about it, basically super up. And I might even up my brightness a bit too. So now you can see you don't really even see the ghosting because this is our template. So we want to basically make this as close to stark white and stark black as we possibly can, because we are going to separate those in a moment. So I'm going to hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is hit select. I'm going to go color range. And then you can see here, Photoshop will tend to separate your photo into 3 categories. So there's the highlights, midtones, and shadows. I want to select all of the black text so that I can exclude it. Another route to go would be to select the highlights. I prefer to select the shadows, and that's just an experience thing. I always find that if I select the dark kind of shadows, it just ends up going better. So you can mess with your range and fuzziness and see what that does. I'm gonna keep it about here. That looks good. Then I'm gonna hit OK. And now I get all these little marching ants because it has selected all of the black portions. So that looks pretty good. Now what I'm gonna do is click my little eyeball to show my final image. And the really cool thing about this is that it has still kept it selected. So I didn't have to mess with my final image in order to make that good accurate selection. So I'm gonna just hide my template for now. And then we're gonna use the brush tool. It's this guy right here, or B. Make sure that your hardness is down pretty low, if not 0, pretty darn close to 0, and then you want your opacity to be below 50%, probably below 30%, depending on how natural you want it to look. And then definitely make sure that final image is selected. I do that all the time. So you've got your brush tool. You're ready to rock and roll. The only problem is we have our black text selected instead of the white. So we want to select the inverse. So go select and inverse. And now your brush tool should work. The way that you grab your color that you're filling in with is go option, select, and then you can just start to go through. The size of your brush tool is controlled here. Otherwise, on a Mac, you can hold down Control and Option and actually change the size of your brush that way. So I, pretty much for everything I do in Photoshop, I use like a blotting kind of technique with so I'm just doing one click at a time. I'm not clicking and dragging. I'm literally just doing one kind of move at a time. And the main reason for that is so that if you make a mistake, it's really easy to undo, and you don't undo like the last, whole section that you just did. I'm gonna up my opacity a little bit just because I want it to make more of a difference here. So you can see it's starting to kind of go away. Again, like, don't want to get rid of it completely because then it's just gonna look kind of fake. So still kind of going through, and I can totally just click over all of this text and it's not going to do anything to it because we told Photoshop not to mess with that stuff. This is definitely the worst part up here. This ghosting is horrible, so just kind of going through. You can see that there was actually an error in what Photoshop selected, because it actually did grab some of that ghosting. What I'm gonna do is hit this little guy right here. W is another thing you can do, and then I'm gonna hold Option and then click, and basically I'm hoping that did what I wanted it to do. No, I'm actually gonna not hold Option. Yeah, I'm gonna just do that. And then B for my brush tool, and now it's deselected. So basically this little guy, this quick selection tool, is a good way to kind of make any edits to what Photoshop automatically selected. So like, let's say I wanted to fill in these little boxes, I can just kind of click in here and make any kind of changes. So that's sort of a different, a whole different can of worms, but just for this purpose. So one thing when I first started using Photoshop that was very unintuitive to me was that if you have a selection, so you have all these little marching ants, it doesn't work just to kind of click off of them. And what you have to do instead is go deselect or Command D. And now you can see that a lot of my ghosting is definitely improved. And that was a stylistic choice, that I wasn't going to get rid of it completely. So you can definitely see some of it still. Depending on your personal preference, if you want to get rid of all of it, like I could have definitely gone way harder with the brush tool on that. The last thing I'm going to fix here is just the color on this page versus this page is pretty different. This page looks very blue to me, and this page looks pretty yellow to me. So I'm going to backstep so I can reselect my black text so I don't affect it here. Hit my brush tool again, and then using that same method, I'm actually just going to do a little bit of color correcting here. So not getting rid of any ghosting, just kind of color correcting on this page. Not too much because I don't want to lose my crease or anything like that. But that looks significantly better. There are a lot of other things that I could do to this photo. Just for the sake of this tutorial, I think I'm going to call this done. If you have any questions, please hit me up. You can comment on this video if you have any comments or questions or concerns, but that is basically it. There's tons of tutorials on Photoshop, so I definitely, if you're confused by anything, I basically learned Photoshop by just kind of Googling things over and over again, so you can definitely reach out to me, or you can just kind of Google it on your own. But that's basically how you Photoshop a bullet journal photo to get rid of ghosting. Thanks so much for watching.